When Israel's prime minister goes to speak to a joint session of Congress in Washington, D.C., or when an Israeli singer participates in a singing competition in Europe, or Israeli athletes compete in the Olympics, basically wherever there's anything mentioning Israel, let alone a presence of Israelis, and in other cases nothing mentioning Israelis, but mentioning Jews. There are protests, so-called protests. In many cases, there are riots, even though that's not how they're reported. But yeah, the hatred towards Israel around the world is not difficult to see, and it's not difficult to see in the West. We can write off some countries not in the West. Um, but to what extent is Israel's standing in the world understood by Israelis? To what extent do Israelis understand their standing in the Middle East? The conflict they're in. Do they realize what's going on? Well, we're going to discuss that and more today. I'm joined by Tal Tsfany, CEO and president of the Ayn Rand Institute. You can't see him, but I promise you he's there, and you'll see him soon. And for now, you'll only hear him. Hey, Tal.
Hi there, Razi. I apologize. And yes, in several minutes, I'll get back home. This is the busy schedule of what I'm trying to do these days. So I apologize for that. And hopefully you'll be able to see me in a couple of minutes.
So, what are your thoughts on that? On again, how Israel is seen and how Israel, to what extent Israelis? You just came back from Israel. I forgot to mention that you came back from Israel a week or two ago, right? You spent, was it a week in Israel?
Yeah, a little bit more of a week that was filled with interviews with the most popular podcasts, even TV. With the help of Jonathan, who works for us in Israel, we were able to secure many podcasts that I was really impressed. There was one occasion where when the host realized who they're supposed to be talking to, uh, they, they actually rejected it, but otherwise it was a very successful visit. And yeah, I learned a lot, and in my preparation for this visit, I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of reading, and solidified a lot of points of view about the conflict and the current situation. I've talked to a lot of experts, military experts, who gave me an understanding of what is the reality of the Israeli, the IDF right now. So yeah, it was a very successful visit, all in all.
Um, you obviously don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what specifically did the host of the show that decided not to go ahead with the interview? What was their issue? If you're okay talking
Uh,
about it.
can you hear and see me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. She read something I've written about the conflict. I said something about occupying Gaza, just being there and taking the problem into our own hands as Israelis. And she said, "What do you mean? Get back to occupying Gaza?" And I said, "Yes, but this time in a very different way." And she said, "For that, I cannot give a platform." Her decision.
Yeah, her decision, although I don't know if you want to show how an idea is wrong, why don't you actually show it? And that's, by the way, did you listen to Netanyahu's speech in Congress a couple days ago?
I did. I heard the whole thing. I had to, fast forward all of the clapping. I mean, people were going up and down every minute or two. So I think he knows how to deliver those kind of speeches. That's for sure.
Yeah. By the way, it was one half of the audience standing up and clapping, and it would be great if that half was, on the right side of other things as well, but that's not
Yeah.
how it works. But yeah, he mentioned in that speech, look, we have no intention of going back to occupying Gaza. And I was thinking about early 20s Razi living in Israel, a Likud member who, when there was the Likud party referendum that Ariel Sharon, the prime minister, announced and said, whatever happens in this referendum, that's what we'll do about the plan to disengage from Gaza, to get both the civilians and the military out. And of course, the no vote won, but Sharon went ahead. Netanyahu quit the government over that.
Yeah,
So
he
I'm
did.
thinking, what has changed his mind since then? What are the positive outcomes of the disengagement that made Netanyahu think, you know what, maybe occupying Gaza is a bad idea?
Look, the problem with Benjamin Netanyahu is that it seems like he is exposed to good ideas. He actually, from time to time, understands good ideas, but it's hard for me to judge how much it's his own cowardness and how much is real, the kind of the rules of the game, where if you were inside of those rules of the game, can you actually push ideas that you think can have any chance of seeing, the light of day? The defenders of Benjamin Netanyahu that I've talked to in Israel say you just don't understand what's going on here. I mean, he can be an objectivist for all we care, but he cannot, from a maneuvering perspective, push ideas that he actually thinks are true. Now, if you listen to what he says at the end of it, he says, a day after we win, right? We have to go in and demilitarize. And there was another concept that he used: demilitarize and I think reinstate a rule of law in Gaza. I think that part of the talk was good. It showed that he understands that something fundamental needs to happen, and that there's no way that we're just going to sit on the fence like we did for decades and allow whoever wants to run the show inside of Gaza do whatever they want. So I came back with, I would say, a little bit of appreciation of Netanyahu as someone who, at least as far as I can see, is the best option right now. Unfortunately, I don't like him at all. I think he's a coward. I think he's not showing leadership. He seems a little corrupt with all the allegations. There's some smell of corruption there. But regardless, I think there's no better options at this point, unfortunately. If you go to the right, which I've talked to a lot of people, I don't know if you saw my interviews there with the people all the way in the settlements, deep in the settlements. The problem with their ideas is that they want to turn Israel into a more of a messianistic, religious country as a response, right? And of course, the left is still the left, radical left. So Netanyahu, for me, sits somewhere in the middle, a mixed bag of good and bad ideas, very bad leadership skills sometimes, very good leadership some others. He's a diplomat, politician. I visited the Knesset just to see the corruption from within. And man, I mean, talk about a deteriorating level of, just discourse. It's just unbelievable. On the other hand, I just see the opening in the Israeli culture for new ideas, for like, what can we do now? I mean, everything is lost. I mean, what I thought was true was not true. What the left think is true, of course, is not true. So what is true here? And they all talk very pragmatic questions. They're all about what is, they call it Tmunat Nitzachon. They call it like what is the picture of us winning this thing? How does that look like? What does the day after look like? So they're very interested in those kind of questions of what is a pragmatic solution here? How will Israel and Gaza look like in a decade from now? Nobody has a vision. And then you see the deterioration into emotionalism, where all the billboards say, if we bring back the hostages, we've won the war. Like a 4-year-old thinking, emotionalistic and completely unrealistic. So, I mean, Israel right now is in a real, just junction, if you will, of where is it going from here. And I think Netanyahu actually, with all of his, diplomatic and sometime demagogical way of presenting things, still I think is pushing somewhat in the right direction, and unfortunately he's the one responsible to let the IDF to be where it is, which I think is a real unspoken disaster here. The corruption of the IDF in the last 20 years. What I've heard from generals from within is just horrifying. That's another aspect.
All right, I want to get back to Netanyahu later, but thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for gifting an Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube membership. Yeah, I listened to a few of your interviews in Hebrew. I also conducted one of those interviews, although remotely. Yeah, one thing that's memorable, although this was not the issue, but you were talking about philosophy, and you said, 2 + 2 is always going to be 4, and the guy said, well, maybe.
Well, maybe
yeah.
on Wednesday, yes, but
Um,
it was interesting to me that a scientist, like he's an electrical engineer by profession, started with saying you cannot expect to have science in the humanities, right? And I said, no, that's exactly what I expect. And this is, I think, what Ayn Rand brings to the humanities. Another thing, that people don't remember is that philosophy and science were one. And at one point, because of the failure of philosophers, the world kind of knowledge ripped into two. The material sciences, who went on to be amazing and give us all the wealth we see around us, and physics and chemistry and biology and everything that evolved from Newton's revolution of science. But the science of the spirit, as we call it in Hebrew, right? In Hebrew, I really like the term madei ruach, which is the science of the spirit, the sign of the soul. And that completely departed from the epistemological foundation that was shared by all sciences and went into this floating, non-realistic world where you can go into a philosophy lesson and hear one student say, no, I think it's A, and the other student says, no, I think it's the opposite, it's B. And then the professor says, you're both right. That's why I went out of philosophy and stuck with engineering, because you don't get that in physics, right? You can't have someone says, no, my answer was 5 meters a second square, and the other one, so it's 7.5, and you're both right. There's no way. And for some reason, we're allowing philosophy, ethics, psychology, all of the humanities to deteriorate into a complete Kantian psychology or epistemology.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to bring this up at the end if we had time, but I'm going to bring it up now because it's been on my mind for the past few hours, and it's not really on topic, but not really off topic either. So a few hours ago, I got this notification from the Meetup app about a philosophy meetup in London. From what I could see, it's super popular. So I thought, okay, I like philosophy. I'll click it. Maybe I'll want to go to it. And I'm just going to read a couple of the rules. They have a few rules. Here are the first two, the rule and the explanation of the rule. Rule number 1, keep it philosophical. No science, no history, no evolutionary psychology, no contestable facts, personal anecdotes, etc. Rule number 2, think for yourself. Great rule, right? Here's what that means. No phones, no looking up definitions, no name-dropping philosophers/books you've read. And then later on in the description, it says, philosophy is about conceptual analysis. It's thinking about thinking. It's not about empiricism or the real world. It's about abstractions, concepts, and ideas. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that in connection to when people actually have to deal with the real world and real world situations like life in Israel?
It's almost like the tragedy of my childhood and teenage years that I would say is embedded in what you just read, because I was always interested in philosophy. As a kid, I asked the big questions of life. Where is God? Why doesn't he show himself? This is why I didn't put the yarmulke in. And when I moved to a kibbutz, it's like common good. Who decides what the common good is? Like this committee that sits together, it's just 5 people saying what they think. Is that common good? I mean, all those kind of things. So And what you just described is exactly how philosophy is thought of in every philosophy department in the world. Every. I'm not saying most, I'm not saying, big majority, every. And if you ask me why I'm so excited about ARU, the Ayn Rand University, and what we're building, and maybe I'll give you a scoop, Razi, in your show. We have just started an accreditation process of trying to make ARU the first, I think the first objective or objectivist philosophy, degree ever. And it will resurrect, hopefully, the halls of wherever, Aristotle was walking, and people in the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, where philosophy was connected to earth, it was connected to life. The whole science is the objective of the science is to guide, man to the prosperous, thriving state that he can achieve according to his means of survival, which is our reason and rationality. I say it's the tragedy of my younger years, because that what pushed me away from my chosen passion, which was ideas, into the world of technology. Made my fortune in technology, not because I was passionate about it, because I was good. I'm a smart kid and I could figure things out. But as soon as Ayn Rand opened the door back to say, welcome back, now the world makes sense again, then I rushed in. And the minute I read Atlas and then the Fountainhead and then everything, Ayn Rand, because suddenly, you jump into waters that make sense to you and actually improve your life. I took that philosophy to improve my life, to improve my psychology, to improve my decisions. And so it's the most pragmatic, down-to-earth science for me. It's very abstract, but so are we as human beings. What is happiness? What is passion? And so on. But those are real tools that we need in order to live our lives. So that's what Ayn Rand gave me.
And yeah, by the way, usually when people say I'm going to give you a scoop, I'm not, I don't I don't expect much, but that actually is really amazing if ARU does offer accredited courses. Yeah, let's hope that works and quickly. And it does, give me a little bit of hope, but because we on this channel mostly follow what's going on in Israel, I've been losing hope for the better part of the last year. And I want to go back to Netanyahu. I think that's a point where you and I disagree. I mean, you said people who support him said, look, he might as well be an objectivist, but he just can't do the things he wants to do.
But he's not. I'm just saying, I'm not protecting. Just let me make it clear. I don't like Bibi. I think he's a bad leader. I would love to have somebody much, much better than him. I'm just talking about this specific item of the way they see the future and where is it going. Maybe Bennett, but again, if you think about what Bennett represents philosophically, Bibi Netanyahu is not a religious person. Don't let him fool you, right? He said God bless and God whatever, but he's not a Naftali Bennett, and he's not all of the people to the right of Benjamin Netanyahu who might say the right things, but coming from the wrong reasons.
But Israel is in a sort of perpetual lifeboat situation. I mean, what's important in Israel now is, and this is always the excuse of people who don't want to do the right thing. But I think in the case of Israel, it is, if somebody said, look, I'm not going to cut taxes or so on, but actually understood the problem of who the enemy is and said, I'm going to fight that enemy until they're defeated, I would be like, yeah, let's vote for that person, because Israel is actually surrounded by savages who want nothing more than to kill all the Jews, and that's what they dedicate all their resources, the resources that we in the West give them. That's what they dedicate that to. So, Netanyahu could have done a lot more than he has done so far, and he could have done that immediately. Like what he could have done on October 7th and October 8th, maybe would have gotten some condemnation, but it wouldn't have been serious condemnation because of what had just happened. So it's like he doesn't want to do what he knows is right, and he has the excuse of, well, America won't let us, or whatever.
Yeah, he's a complete pragmatist. But the question is, as objectivists, how do we analyze the situation? We can imagine the perfect world, the perfect leader who will, if we put Razi as the prime minister of Israel, what will Razi do, right? So what Razi would do in order to fix everything, and I'm sure that you would do a much better job than Benjamin Netanyahu with the ideas you carry, but nobody will elect Razi today to be a prime minister of Israel. Nobody. So what are we talking about? This is fiction. So within what's going on, we need to analyze the real situation. We need to analyze the different options. What would happen if there were elections today and you will have Gantz in, or somebody else, or who knows? I think the corruption, what I blame Benjamin Netanyahu is to not caring enough and not being observant enough to see the fact that the most important thing, which is the strength of the IDF to crush Iran, to fight in Iran, with Hezbollah and with Gaza and maybe the West Bank all together, is now not existent. It could have been existing. We have done it before. We fought in like 4 fronts at the same time, but they dismantled, the IDF capacity to fight, and they're scrambling, honestly scrambling. And this is where you cannot expect to do things that are just not realistic. The IDF right now, if I understand it correctly, does not have the capacity, the tanks, the divisions, the expertise, the soldiers, the training of the soldiers to fight 2-3 busy fronts. They just don't have it. So this is why I think the leaning on America is much more important to the Israelis right now. This is why Benjamin Netanyahu pleaded, if you think about it, give us ammunition faster so we can win faster. They need it, unfortunately. When I was a soldier, I know the stocks of ammunition that the IDF had. It could fight 2-3 wars. And for some reason, in the last 20 years, when the head of IDF's intelligence saying that he's more worried about global warming than the Hamas, like a year ago, that's when you know that something bad is happening. And that's what I blame Netanyahu mostly, to get us to where we are right now, not just the response to October 7th.
Yeah, because most of these past 20 years, Netanyahu has been prime minister. So yeah, that's on him. And yeah, I from what little I know, you're right. Israel can't fight these wars, and that is terrifying. And I think that's it's also something that Israel is indicating in action in the north against Hezbollah. It's in action until a week ago with regards to Yemen. And it's bombing of a warehouse or whatever it was in Iran. The enemy hears these messages and acts accordingly. And I think the people always say we don't want escalation. Well, the other side wants escalation at the time when they know their goal of exterminating the Jews will be achieved. So
right.
Shouldn't we want escalation sooner?
I think we should not kick the can down the road. If Israel had the power, and it might have the power again in a couple of years, to really fight a war against Iran and defeat Iran, while taking all of the heat from the world, while controlling what's going on in Lebanon, while controlling Gaza and the West Bank, it should. If you asked me what Israel needs to do, it's to stop kicking the can down the road and let its enemies equip themselves and buy more ammunition. So every time the hit is actually harder and deeper. I mean, it's truly the most atrocious thing we've experienced as Israelis since the Independence War, when 1% of the Israelis died in it, but it was not raping and beheading. The psychological effect on Israelis is there. I see it in the streets. I saw it in the streets. I mean, people are losing hope. They're losing the moral superiority that they felt What do you mean? We're so much better than they are. Look at the IDF. If you just tell the IDF to act, we will crush everyone, right? We have one of the best armies in the world. That confidence is lost, and that speaks a lot to what it means to kick the can down the road for decades. So I think it should stop. Israel should rebuild itself from a security perspective, its ability to defend itself, and it should crush the head of the snake, which is Iran. You can argue that there are a lot of threats associated with attacking Iran directly, but Iran attacked you, right? One of the hardest moments for me in all of this was waking up the day after the drones came from Iran, thinking, finally, if we didn't have an excuse to attack Iran directly, now here it is. When I was in flight academy, we heard the pilots that went and demolished the Iraqi nuclear reactor in 1981, when Begin said, "Oh, there's an Iraqi nuclear reactor being built, go crush it." And like within 24 hours, it was history. And that was the pride. I mean, I remember the newspapers as a kid. I mean, we don't mess with us. We'll come after you wherever you are. And where is that Begin determination to go and send? And it won't take much. We have the capacity today in the Air Force to go and bomb all of the Iranian nuclear facilities. We're not doing it. Why does Netanyahu need the permission of a Biden to go and bomb everything nuclear in Iran? No reason. Maybe he's afraid, and maybe he knows things we don't know. But I mean, you can see the deterioration of the Israeli confidence, the superiority of the IDF, and that is devastating. I literally never thought I will think about the fact that Israel one day will be wiped out. And you can see scenarios in the next 20, 30 years where that actually happened.
Yeah. By the way, that attack on Iraq's nuclear program was widely condemned, including by allies. Margaret Thatcher said that Iraq has the right to retaliate, but Israel did what had to be done, knowing that maybe it'll get some bad headlines.
And all the noise passed, nobody, we're overestimating the power of public opinion.
Yeah. All right, we do have to go, but thank you, Megan, for the super chat. Megan says, please have Tal on next week so he can announce ARU accreditation for of STEM degrees taught with objectivist epistemology. First of all, I think it might be optimistic to think it'll happen next week. It's also optimistic to think that he'll do it here rather than on ARI's official channel, but we'll try.
We were going to announce more and more advancement as it happens, but I've announced the building of the Ayn Rand Center in Austin, Texas. This is all part of the same initiative. And if you want a little bit of optimism, Razi, at the end of this show, objectivism is gaining more and more attention from very powerful people. I think as things get worse and worse, people are searching for answers, and objectivism has a lot of answers.
Yeah, I mean, we've noticed that on this channel as well, and it's unfortunate that it has to that this is how it has to happen, but well, we'll take it. So I don't know if you saw this story last week in the BBC of the IDF, an IDF dog killing a 24-year-old guy with Down syndrome. But this story, the way it was reported, everything about it was just terrible journalism in every way imaginable. We covered it on the reality show at the time. Since then, people have done their research, and we know that it was actually so much of that story was bullshit. Today on the reality show, which follows this show in a couple of minutes, we are going to talk about it. This might be an extended episode. We're going to go through the details. We usually have 4 people on the reality show. This time we have 5 people because it's one of those topics where, we spent the best of our money on the best plastic bags for us to throw up in if we have to, because really this is a big part of why you see all these protests is because of the way it's reported, really dishonestly. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Tal, for joining us. Thanks
Thank you,
everybody for
Razi.
watching, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.